It's been a minute since I've been on here, and it has to do partially with the fact that I just started my last semester at USF, so yay, almost done. We're here to talk about horror movies, specifically Asian horror movies, which are some of my favorites. And that has to do with how effective they are at getting under my skin. I actually recently had a nightmare, some type of Sudoku type character in my nightmare, where I was with a bunch of friends and we're going down this narrow road, which was just completely pitch dark. The only thing illuminated was this bar. And of course, why in the nightmare was I the individual that was like, hey guys, let's go in here. There's this like girl just in a wheelchair, and all of a sudden she saw us drive by and she like did the spider crawl trying to come at us. Anyway, weird story. With that said, I'm not going to be focused on any of like the mainstream ones that we know, like Ringu or Ju-on Audition, even though I love that movie and I love Asami, but we're going to be focusing on 5 different horror movies from 5 different countries. First movie that I'm going to be talking about and recommending to you guys is Red Room, which came out in 1999. This one comes to us from Japan, and it involves 4 contestants who play this game, this kind of reality show style game, for a chance to win 10 million yen. The way the game works is basically you have the 4 cards, and whomever draws the king card has this title or this immunity where they're able to tell person A, hey, you're going to inflict XYZ upon person B. The beginning of this film is probably one of the most disturbing parts for me. I will never look at kissing the same way again because of the sound design and the sound effects and the lip smacking and the close-up shots. I was like, dude, what the? All right, cool. This is happening. And then it just keeps going and going. This movie is actually like SOV or shot on video style, so kind of similar to like what you see in telenovelas. So I actually really like that format. I think it goes well with the game show concept. Trigger warning though, and I will include some trigger warnings. There is a woman who is violated, 2 of them. Some other stuff going on, such as urination and other things like that. But other than that, if you're wanting to delve deep into some of these movies, maybe if you haven't seen Red Room, give it a chance. Oof. That energy drink's got me like hyped up, man. So the next film that we're going to be talking about comes to us from South Korea, and that is 2010's Bedeviled. So this one involves a woman who is put through psychological, verbal, emotional, and sexual abuse, all types of torture, and she is seeking a way out. We're introduced to 2 main characters in this film. Initially, we're introduced to Hae-Won and then Bak-nam. So between the 2 of them, this movie really enraged me, but it was really good. The reason for that is that I felt like I empathized with Bak-nam in the situation and what she was experiencing, especially if you're having family members just degrade you to that point. Like I said, initially we're introduced to Hae-Won, who grew up with Bak-nam. They're best friends. They kind of drifted apart because Hae-Won is living in Seoul and she's this like businesswoman, whereas Bak-nam is living off the mainland on this island and just kind of living this very mundane life. With that said, Hae-Won is probably the most aggravating characters because it's almost like a self-reflection on society, the idea of no good deed goes unpunished, because she sees very peculiar things and very outright messed up things happening, but she remains silent. She never gets involved. And I think that's true to how most people would be. Like if you saw some type of conflict, majority of the time people don't want to get involved in any type of mess. But with her, it's aggravating because Bak-nam is her best friend, and some of the things that occur on this island when she's on a leave of absence for smacking the shit out of a coworker, when you're introduced to Bak-nam's family, these people will aggravate the living shit out of you. And it's more egregious and just, gets under your skin because a lot of it is the elderly women. They have this like very archaic or antiquated mentality of how the woman should be in the household. She has this moment of clarity and she just goes on a massacre, and I'm like, you know what? She just has nothing to live for. And you'll find out, if you haven't watched this film, you'll find out what brings her to that point. There's a moment of reflection for a particular character, like I said, Hae-Won, who I don't care for. Even if that moment comes at the end, too little too late, I found her very cowardly. At no point did you try to defend your best friend or intervene, but other than that, I think it's a solid film. And I think it's a good movie to ponder over. So if you haven't watched this one, I would highly recommend it if you can stomach it. The next film that I'm going to be recommending to you guys comes to us from Indonesia, and that is 2019's IMPETIGORE. It involves a woman who inherits a house in her ancestral village, but she is unaware that members of the community have been trying to locate and kill her to remove the curse that has plagued them for years. It's directed by Joko Anwar. I'm not too familiar with his work, but from what I found out, he directed a film, a remake of Satan's Slaves. It had some really cool concepts. I think it's shot just fantastically. I really like the direction because it's more of like a folk horror. The establishing point of this film that really draws you in is this character, our lead, Maya, who is working at this late night job as a toll booth collector, and she sees a stalker who keeps coming to visit her, but in a really creepy way. And then he pulls up a machete trying to kill her. The way this movie starts is really good because you're like, why is this guy so obsessed with her? And why is he trying to kill her? Because he does state something about the curse. I think in terms of the location, it was perfect because you have these two women, Maya and her best friend Dinny, who go to the property and it's abandoned, yet everything is still immaculate, like nothing has been moved. The villagers are off-putting. You already get that vibe off the start. But something that you do notice with the film is that there is a cemetery. There is a graveyard, and a majority of it is all children. You will see children being drowned. So it's another trigger warning there if that's gonna get you. And you see skin that's flayed. And oh, one thing that I also wanted to point out about this movie, I'm just jumping all over the place, but I'm trying to think, what was it? It was a point where one of the characters is doing this like shadow puppet show, and there's like the silhouette, but then he just starts like hacking everyone up. So there are some like really creative framing and just techniques used within this film. I would highly recommend it because, yeah, this is a weird town. If you haven't watched this one, it's on Shudder. So speaking of Shudder, and I'm not talking about the horror streaming service, we've got 2004's Shudder, which comes to us from Thailand. So this film involves a couple named Jane and Toon, who after having a night out with friends, they accidentally hit someone, a woman, and instead of checking up on her, Toon decides and tells Jane, let's just drive off. But what follows is basically a haunting. Toon is a photographer, and what they see in the images are these shadowy figures, and they are perplexed. Interesting in terms of the direction that it takes because you find out so much, there's a lot of revelation. It makes you really, really dislike Toon. And this is one of those movies where I'm on the spirit side or the entity side. What I was saying earlier in my video about the nightmare that I had, and I had this nightmare about this Sadako character, or Samara, it was actually inspired mostly by this film, which is so weird because Shudder was not one of those really terrifying movies, but for some reason I think that scene where they're driving off and this shadowy figure, this entity is following them and like following them at a high speed and like reaching up. So thank you, Shudder, for giving me a nightmare and creeping me out. For the last film that I'm going to be recommending today, that is 2010's Dream Home. This one is perhaps my favorite one because it's delving more into the slasher type of horror film, and it involves a woman named Chang who works two jobs to kind of sustain and keep things afloat with her family in her hopes of having this beautiful high-rise off the Victoria Bay. Even though it's not in chronological order, so you do have scenes that go into flashbacks and different points in her life and why she is the person that she is and why she's doing what she's doing. There's just so many obstacles with like the mortgage and lending, and it's not working out in her favor. It does state that this is based on true events or it's based on a true story. The story itself of her committing all these crimes, that's not true. But I think it has to do with what happened in 2008, 2009 with the recession and the economy. So what do you do in that situation when you are being turned down? I guess turned to murder. So her plan basically is to kill all the residents of this high rise in order to essentially lower the value of this place that she wants. When I tell you the gore in this movie, it's like that over-the-top gore. It's relentless. I am just wondering, like, the choreography of getting all these shots, like the way it was done. I wish I could see like behind the scenes. I would say the most disturbing part would be a pregnant woman is killed in a pretty messed up way. This movie has some really inventive kills, and that's why I'm like, damn, she's out for blood. Oh, there is a scene where the one thing that I hate, Hostel did this, Frontiers did this, which is another movie I'm going to talk about on the extreme horrors list. But the main girl, Chang, when she's trying to kill one of the girls, I think the knife, she shoves it like in her Achilles tendon or through her ankle somewhere. But I was like, oh, the fucking sickness of her like pulling it out. I'm like, fucking stop. I'm a wimp when it comes to like any type of foot injuries, any type of like your ankle, your feet, anywhere like that. It just grosses me out beyond belief. I don't know why. Like anywhere else, gouge their eyes out, do all this other weird shit. I can handle it in a horror movie, but for some reason that's my Achilles heel. But yeah, this has, like I said, some really inventive kills, some really sick kills. Like there's a shot of someone being killed mid-coitus, and what she does, castrate this person. Not justifying your actions, but at the same time, I get it, girl. Inflation is wild. The housing market is wild. Though that pregnant woman, I think that was the one that like kind of took it a little bit too far for me, where I was like, surely she's not going to do what I think she's going to do. And then it was like, okay, yeah, she really did that. Let me know what you guys think. If you have watched these movies, what do you think about all of them? I try to keep it as diverse as possible, but yeah, let me know what you guys would like for me to cover next, because I'm debating between Extreme Horror Movies Part 2 or The Nun 2, because dude, got some opinions on that movie. I hope you guys have an awesome day, and I'll be back soon. Bye, guys.